Welcome to the Left of Str8 Show, where we talk entertainment, music, books, foodies, and more each week with special guest interviews of interest to the LGBTQ community and our straight allies. Direct from the entertainment capital of Northeast Ohio. Your host, Scott Fullerton, chats with some of your favorite entertainers, celebrities, newsmakers, and behind-the-scenes people across the country and around the world who make it all happen. So sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and let's start talking.
Well, howdy, everyone. Welcome back to the Left of Str8 Show. We are officially recording episodes for year 9. We had that big 8-year anniversary blowout of our very first episode on Monday, July 3rd. I was so excited to bring back my 2 original guests from 8 years ago. Kelly McCracken was a plaintiff in the marriage equality case that we won at the Supreme Court 8 years ago. She's also an amazing frontwoman singer for 2 awesome bands here in Ohio, the Kellys and Flying Underground. And my second guest, Ben Patrick Johnson, is a huge marriage equality advocate back in California when they were fighting for the rights back there. Also an amazing voice actor and former host of Extra Entertainment TV, you might remember back in the day. He's gone through a lot of issues since then, personal and otherwise, but he's come back stronger than ever, and it was so exciting to talk to both of them. If you missed the episode, you can always catch it on our replays. You can check us out on YouTube or any of your major podcast distributors. Again, I'm your host, as always, Scott Fullerton, and with me today, we have surpassed the B in our little alphabet, LGBTQ. We have gone trisexual with guests from Florida, New Jersey, and Ohio. I'm going to try to keep a rein on these hilarious gentlemen from the always funny No New Friends podcast. Scott Maffei, an original founder of the podcast, is in beautiful downtown Disney World, Florida. He's known as the architect of Mary's Pain, his lovely co-founder and co-host. Scott seemingly has recurring daddy issues on the show, but not in the fun gay way. Chris Yobb can be found in beautiful downtown Strawberry Mountain, Cherry Hill, something New Jersey. No one really admits where they are in New Jersey, but he is actually the last living person granted friendship in the No New Friends podcast world. He's affectionately, I say with a question mark, known as the scumbag reselling hoarder on the show. And then bringing up the rear, not necessarily in the gay way, but a little more than Scott, is their co-host on the very special After Dark episodes of No Friends. Nick Bryan is here. He's a mere 2.5 hours away from me in beautiful downtown Columbus. Nick's a travel expert with his own concierge business and apparently has no nickname because his friendship status is still pending on No New Friends. So please welcome to the show for the very first time, Mr. Chris, Scott, and Nick. Boys, how are we doing today?
Doing great.
That intro was so much better than what Chris does on our podcast.
Yeah, seriously.
Taking notes over here.
Do you have time to be on another podcast? Because I've been trying to replace Chris since he started.
Oh, my goodness. Well, thank you very much for that. I kind of am known for my research and for my long introduction. So same way as with Chris there, so I have a little fun with it.
In Florida, we're really good at doing our own research also, but different types of research.
There you go. All right. I like it. Well, it's exciting to have the three of you on. Thank you so much. I was able to guest on your podcast last night, No New Friends After Dark, which is perfect for me because I always say I have the face for radio and I'm not good before dark anyway. So it worked well for me last night. But yours is a fun show. Exciting stuff.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. You know, we do the 2 episodes a week. The Sunday is more just straight humor, making fun of the stupid stuff that we do in our everyday daily life. And then our Wednesday episode, the After Dark, somewhat serious, but also still somewhat funny, where we tackle some pulling back the curtain of life and talk about mental health and the LGBTQ plus community and what we can do better.
Well, it's exciting and fun to play with there. Scott, you were like an original founder of this with Mary. Talk about where the idea of the podcast came from, how the name No New Friends came about, and what is exactly your quote on friendship these days? How can we get in here?
So here's the deal. It was never supposed to happen, but I guested on radio shows, and when COVID hit, I was like, wait a second, they're recording on StreamYard or on the interweb. Maybe I could do this. So I had a whole nother podcast in mind, Working Dad Jokes. It was going to be 4 guys, pretty much the same premise, but just, talking about fatherhood and whatnot. And so I asked my dad if he could help me test recording on Zoom. He was not available, so I honeypotted Marianne. I said, hey, let me just record this for 20 minutes. It's never going to see the light of day. That was a lie. And that was our first episode. Now, No New Friends, I don't know why we named it that. If I could change one thing, I would have gone back and not named it that. The idea at the time was like, look, no new friends. We've got enough in our life. Mary and I are best friends. We've been best friends for like 10 years, but no new friends, like just us. But now it's kind of evolved. It's one, we're awkward human beings, and 2, we don't have time with all the adulting that we're doing to have new friends. So we want new friends, and we're trying to have new friends, but we don't really. Nobody really likes us, Scott.
Oh no, and it's hard to let other people play with your toys. So, Chris, you were actually the last one accepted as a new friend. You've been a podcast host of multiple podcasts and a guest other places. What kind of attracted you to this podcast to be a part of the team?
Well, so I was on this kind of a joke of a podcast that we would just do on a Wednesday. Was it, Scott? Wednesday nights, I think.
Wednesday night till like
nights,
3 a.m.
Yeah, Wednesday nights we'd go on and we just live stream on Twitch, and it was called Diz Journey. And what we would do is just talk about Disney stuff, but then not Disney. It was a mess, right? So one day, Scott and Mary from the No New Friends podcast come on, and that's how I met them. And they asked me to guest on their show, and they thought that I was a part of this Disney podcast. It's a very confusing.
You just jumped into the wrong Zoom room, right? That was an accident.
It was almost like I was basically just hanging out with friends, and they thought I was on a podcast already. So they asked me to come on, and we just had instant chemistry together, the 3 of us, and then I came on the next night because at that point I think they're doing 7 shows a week, Scott.
That was great. 3 episodes a week. That was when I was a broke, unemployed podcaster.
So
I'm still broke, but
that's how we met. We're still not friends. I've stayed at Scott's house, but we do have to keep the mantra "no new friends." So we don't in the public eye we're not friends because that would just ruin the title. Once Scott changes the name, then maybe we can admit to the public that we're friends. But that's how we met. It was a really weird coincidence how we met, but I'm glad we did because 2 years later and going strong.
Yeah. 2 years later, and he has to take my phone calls all the time. I bother him in the middle of the night. He's got COVID. He's dying. And I'm like, hey, just one more thing. Got to talk about the podcast real quick.
Oh, yep. Mm-hmm.
That is awesome. I love that. And Nick, you kind of came into this After Dark thing. Talk about that. They haven't given you a name yet. I'm so depressed. I looked through the website and everybody has a cool name.
I know. Nick, am I even on the website?
You're not yet. You've got to be. I mean, your company
sort
is.
of mentioned. Your company's mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, are you
Scott,
trying
Nick
to
is
class the place up?
He's our emotional support gay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I call him Daddy.
I was wondering, I didn't know if it was for fashion sense, if you guys were still wearing like socks with your flip-flops or something. I wasn't sure. I just wanted to see what Nick's job was in the scheme of things. How'd you get associated?
We're still working on their clothing. So I kind of met Chris through a different podcast that is his, where I've been a sponsor of that podcast for a couple of years now. So I own a full-service travel agency. We focus on Disney, cruising, all-inclusive resorts, pretty much any vacation destination. So I started sponsoring that podcast where I met Chris on, and they actually had an episode where they kind of did a takeover episode where No New Friends came on, and then I think it was April Fool's episode. Maybe.
Yeah, it was an April Fool's thing, yeah.
Oh, nice.
So they kind of switch roles, and I kind of get to know them and just love their personality. So I started sponsoring the No New Friends podcast, and then earlier this year, they decided to launch this After Dark, where I came on as a guest one week, and they kept me and are keeping me prisoner, I think. So
yeah. Welcome. We keep people prisoners. Nobody actually really wants to be on this podcast, but I've threatened their lives.
The paint scheme's the same. You could be locked in a basement. I can't tell exactly through Zoom.
Scott, they'd have it better off if they were locked in a basement.
That's true.
The combination would be better. I gotcha. Well, one of the questions I always like to ask my first-time guest, and it's always interesting when I have our straight allies on, is when did you first come out to yourself? Who was the first person you told? And where did you kind of find your LGBTQ tribe? Let's start with Chris. When did you first come out to yourself as straight? Who was the first person you told? And when did you finally come out to your straight tribe?
Wow. That's a good question. I don't even know.
It's such an interesting question because
I love this.
Okay. Kindergarten, I kissed a girl on the cheek. And I was forced to come out as straight, which was very embarrassing in kindergarten. And my the chief of my straight tribe, my mom, I guess, she was the one who confronted me about it. And I was forced. I never had a chance. I was just forced into it. I got caught in the coat closet kissing a girl on the cheek in kindergarten, and then that's when I was forced into the straight tribe. Scott, that's a great question.
There you go, Scott. What about you, buddy?
It has to be around that same time, when we were kids. It's like, oh, kiss your friend real quick. Let's get a picture. The parents are taking a picture of. So I was forced into straighthood as well. Because they definitely had me kiss the little cute girl. I keep trying to find her on Facebook. She was really cute, but I can't. So, I came out to my tribe shortly thereafter that as I was chasing the girls. I always had a girlfriend, except for when I didn't. Still.
It's amazing how that works. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I always had a girlfriend until I had kids, and then the girls didn't want to have anything to do with me anymore. So
it's that ring of kryptonite you put on your finger there. It's just it's
exactly. Yes, it does. So yeah, I guess. God, it's such an interesting question because it's not anything that we've had to think about. It's just.
This is something really good we should have talked about because we had a coming out episode on No New Friends After Dark talking about my coming out story, but we never had their coming out story. So
I love it. Why don't you go ahead and share with us the little piece of that? When did you come out to yourself?
Just the tip, Nick.
Who was the first person you told? And where did you kind of find your LGBTQ tribe?
So probably came out, started thinking about it, I guess, around the age 5. Came out to one of my best friends when I was 16, and probably more officially when I was maybe 20, I'd say. So pretty young.
And where did you kind of first find a group of LGBT people you were able to kind of get a friendship with and get that tribe?
Not till college, not till even a couple years after college, because I still lived at home and went to community college for the first 2 years, and then I moved to Columbus in 2005. So probably around 2005 is kind of when I started building that circle of trust.
Got it. Well, I want to get into your podcast again because, like I said, it's so much fun, but it really is. I've been kind of listening to it and catching up. I've known Scott now for a couple months, so I've been listening for a couple months now. You guys really have that randomness to your topics and your humor. Do you guys consider yourself kind of the Seinfeld of podcasting there?
It's so funny. That's what we used to say. We used to say that we were the podcast about nothing and everything at the same time. And the problem with that, Scott, is, as you know, podcasts have to be specific. You can't make it if you're just general and broad. And that was the initial thought, is I wanted to be an FM talk show that was a podcast. That was going to be my way into broadcasting. And I found out that is a very, very slow grow. So we kind of niched it down a little bit, made it about adulting. So it is still kind of random conversation, but it's mostly about, if you listen to our topics, it's parenting, relationships, work, and then the dumb, awkward stuff that we do in our everyday life.
Is there any times that it's really gone off the rails for you, just being sort of random topics come up and just kind of left field all of a sudden?
all the time. I mean, we were doing an episode where I couldn't properly grocery shop and I couldn't find the sugar. And then Chris says, well, I've really been into BJ's lately. And my response is most men are. And all of a sudden it was this whole thing where we were talking about BJ's and Costco, the wholesale, but also the innuendo for oral and not oral, oral and traditional. I don't know. So,
Scott, I know you.
Yeah, I don't experience that much. So, we don't say have sex on our show. We say go to Costco. That's we've been sued by Costco, by the way. So, Alex, cut that out.
I love that. That is amazing.
So, yes, to answer your question, yes, it goes off the rails very quickly, but also in the same realm. Like we don't go too far
Organized chaos.
into left field.
Organized
chaos. Yeah. Organized chaos. I was trying to go to Costco with my wife, but my daughter was having a sleepover party, and she's like, no, not with the kids in the house. Chris's response is, yeah. He goes, I can't even have the dog in my room. And I'm like, wait a second. My dog stays in bed with us. To which it went into this whole left field conversation.
A dog could be traumatized depending on which bedroom they're sleeping, and you never know. You have to be careful of that. And Chris talked to me. Were doing Sunday episodes primarily for a while with you guys. When did you kind of decide to try this After Dark experience and bring Nick aboard and kind of see how that came about?
It's one of the answers that I actually have a lot of fun answering now, because
I'm glad he asked you, because it's perfect for you. Because it was your idea to do this Wednesday episode.
Yeah, so I used to do on Wednesday nights, we would call it, it was Tuesday nights, and then it was Wednesday nights. It was kind of Tuesdays, but we called it Tuesday Night Football. And we have this reoccurring character that has tried to scam us on Instagram. He's from Gambia. His name is Bubba Job. So I created him in Madden, and we did a whole season, and every Tuesday we'd have Tuesday Night Football, and we'd have a storyline going into it, and our listeners would watch on Twitch us play. Scott would commentate, I would play. So it got old after football season was done. We had a Super Bowl and everything, and then we were doing nothing in the middle of the week. So right around that time, we started doing these celebrity interviews. But the interviews, I just, and Scott agreed, it just did not fit our show on a weekly basis, because you don't want to take a whole segment out on a weekly basis for what we were doing and put in a celebrity interview that somebody might not have ever heard of them, or it might not be their style, because they were kind of all over the place, some of these people we were getting on. Some fit the show perfectly, others might not. So I reached out to Scott. I said, listen, I'm not doing anything anymore on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Why don't we do a bonus show? We'll call it No New Friends After Dark. It'll be, we can say whatever we want. We'll talk about the previous episode, and we'll, uncensored, because we try to keep the Sunday episodes relatively clean. And but on Wednesdays, anything goes, and then we'll throw the interview at the end of it. And that was the original idea. And it evolved into even like an important episode, not even just like a let's just say whatever we want, but we bring Nick on and we start talking about, I remember the first episode, I think it was the first episode you were on, Nick, was Q and Gay. And it was two straight guys asking a gay guy questions about the LGBT community. And and we kind of just hit it off like that. And then, the rest is history. If you listen to some of the more recent episodes, we touch very serious topics, and we have very lighthearted conversations as well. But that's how it all began.
Yeah, I think the Jeremy Miller episode is what kind of made it go a little bit more serious, because we start talking about mental health, because Jeremy Miller, who played Ben Seaver on Growing Pains, shared with us all of kind of his childhood trauma of being a child actor. And we're like, wait a second, we do serious pretty well. And I think it's a nice switch up.
And the thing about it is that, we joke about adulting on Sundays, but on Wednesdays, we get the cool opportunity to talk about, the realness. Like, I can, if someone listens to me every Sunday on the Sunday episodes, they think I'm the happiest person in the world. I tell jokes and this and that, but I'm suffering from really bad anxiety. I'm on medication, and no one would know that. So it's Wednesdays gives us a perfect opportunity for our listeners to relate to us. And we kind of try to help them navigate life as well, saying like you're not alone. Like we're normal people, just like you.
I love that. And Nick, talk about joining that. I mean, you're basically the episodes I watch, you kind of chime in when asked or when you're going in, but you've co-hosted while Chris has been on vacation in Germany. Talk about taking a more active role in the podcast when this started taking off. How's that been for you?
So podcasting's been kind of a whole new experience for me because I was sat on the other side of it where I would watch every single week of them record the episodes on Twitch or Discord, and so I finally was able to come out of my shell. And hearing Chris, I've heard him on episodes talk about his anxiety and medication and stuff, and I started reaching out to him on the side and was like, talk to me about it, because I felt like whenever anybody kind of mentioned those things, I feel like we just kind of turned the subject. So in return, we've kind of turned the podcast and turned the subject back to talking about those issues that are happening in everyday life. And so for me, it's been very therapeutic. I built a friendship with two straight guys, which I've talked about before. I don't really have very many straight guys in my circle of friends that are close with, besides my brother maybe, and a few other friends here and there that I'm not very close with, but we have these deep conversations and have it publicly too. It's been amazing. And we talked about one episode, I think we talked about being gay, and Scott, the next episode was like, okay, let's talk some more. And I'm like, we don't have to make it all about me and all about the gay community. But it's been fun to educate them on the different topics that are happening in the gay world essentially right now. So.
And talk about it from your guys' perspective, Chris and Scott. I mean, you're obviously empathetic guys. You can tell just from talking to you, you have the fun. But now you've seen an entire new world with Nick coming on every week, and your eyes been opened a little bit to what allyship is all about. What has it kind of meant to you getting that perspective the last few months?
Yeah, it's interesting. We kind of touched on this a little bit last night when you were on our show. I always considered myself an ally. I'd wear the cute Mickey Pride stuff, or the Pride is Universal merchandise and all that, and thought that was enough. Or we'd go to a Pride parade. I thought that was enough. But in talking to Nick, and now our eyes are. There's news stories all the time. There's things being taken away from the LGBTQ rights, being taken away from the LGBTQ plus community all the time that I didn't even know was existing. I had no idea. And now, Nick is not my first gay friend. I've had plenty of gay friends. I've had a gay mother-in-law. The LGBTQ plus community is not something that's new to me, but to really dial into the struggles and the everyday struggles and the things that we take for granted. Being asked the question, when did you come out as straight? I didn't. I just was. And Nick talks a lot about booking vacations in LGBTQ plus friendly places. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that Nick had to worry about that. So it's definitely opened my eyes, and now I'm like, I was never an ally before. I was a supporter, but I wasn't an ally, and now it's been kind of our mission to educate ourselves, but educate our listeners as well. We're trying to change the world one episode at a time.
There you go. And Chris, we talked about it last night on your show a bit. You guys are these fantastic allies, but you start hearing about all these different laws that are being passed or things that are happening. How does it actually feel from a straight perspective, good or bad? What are the things that you can understand where some people are getting frustrated with in the straight community, and where some things are like, that's ridiculous. I don't understand why people aren't getting that quicker.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say good nor bad. I'd say just sad. It just makes me sad hearing some of this stuff because like we were talking about last night, we were talking about the Supreme Court ruling, and I was looking at it from purely a business standpoint, right? And I have an opinion because of just that, based on business alone. And I can go to bed at night. It doesn't that case doesn't affect me whatsoever. But people of the LGBTQ plus community go to bed scared because of that ruling. And Nick has really helped me open my eyes to stuff like that because we talk about things that are going on in the gay community, and I would have no idea. I had no idea any of this stuff was going on, you know? And I can live my life, and I had been living my life not knowing this stuff and feeling just fine. Now that my eyes are being open to this stuff, it makes me sad. But it also makes me more motivated to kind of pound the message that we are trying to convey on now a weekly basis. And it, like Scott says, I agree with him. I thought I was an ally. Now I finally feel like one, because I'm not just wearing a shirt, but now I can, you know, on a weekly basis be, hey, just love everybody, and just, you know, and try to push that message.
That's amazing. And Nick, talk about just seeing, I mean, I'm sure you're an accidental activist. All of us are. I mean, you're married, you have a beautiful daughter. That was impossible 10 years ago, and you're living that life now. Talk about just what it's like to actually see the realization on Scott and Chris's faces on occasion, and what it's like to be an accidental activist, because I'm sure this is not something you talk about every day, right?
Exactly. I brought it up. I'm like, I've never talked about it publicly because I live in the gay community. It's something that I feel like we all understand each other in the gay community, in a sense of, yeah, we have these struggles happening out there, but to educate them or educate somebody else about it, it's not something that I've ever done. I've always kind of hidden my political type, if you want to make gay political, which it is, unfortunately. I've never talked about it much on social media, even too. I try to steer away from any sort of controversy, and now we've brought it out in a public format on a podcast that it's been amazing to see their reaction to the questions that they have for me as well too. Have been just truly incredible experience. So
that is awesome. I love hearing that. Speaking of going left of straight all of a sudden, I mean, what about this new social media thing today? I don't need another social media in my life.
I don't even know what it. I saw some. Are you on Threads already?
Yes,
I was the 73rd,000 person out of like 15 million. I was an early member.
I did not.
So wait, you have to download a new app?
Yeah, it's the Instagram.
It's basically, then it kind of copies all your Instagram stuff for it.
Yeah.
And like my phone's been blowing up all day because it automatically brings all of your contacts over from Instagram. So you're getting notifications every 30 seconds.
It's been driving
someone's
me
friending
nuts.
you again. It's like driving me. I'm too old for that damn social media shit. I'm telling you. God.
I miss MySpace, where we all learned how to code and add music, and you really knew where you stood with your friends, because are you in the top 8? Are you not? I don't know.
Exactly, right? You guys, it kind of brings me to another thing. We talked about one of the things that I do on my Monday Rainbow Rundown, where I talk about the news of the week, is I have I heard a rumor section where I try to just find out rumors that's going on in the community. You guys have your own little fun endings for your podcast as well. Talk about those. Chris, you do one on the Wednesdays, I believe, or Scott does Wednesdays and you do Sundays.
Yeah.
How does that work exactly?
I hosted an episode of the Sunday episode last year, I guess, for my birthday, I think it was. And the only good thing about me hosting the episode was I wrote an opening monologue. And I love writing monologues. And I have a fantasy football group, and we do an owners meeting once a year, and I always do like a roast. I do an opening monologue, and that was the only outlet I was ever really given. So when I was hosting the episode, I was like, let me do like a little Tonight Show opening monologue. That was a doubleheader recording that night, and Scott reached out to me like an hour before the next show and said, could you write another monologue? And
15 minutes I gave you.
So I did not have a lot of time, and I wrote one, and then Scott was like, after that episode, Scott's always pushing the envelope, which is a good thing, and he said, hey, can you do that same thing, but at the end of the episode, and I want you to write it during the episode. We'll call it Chris's Cliff Notes. And I was like, I don't know, man. And now I've been doing it every week since, and it's like the highlight of my week. I love doing it. So while the episode's going on, I'm taking notes and writing jokes to say. And
you're
at the end of the
very
episode.
Quick-witted with them too, and like.
Oh, thank you.
I mean,
They are. They're so funny. It's like just last night when I listened to Scott, it's like, how do you get all this stuff while we're talking here? I don't understand.
Well, it's fun because we record live with some members of the Discord, and it's fun to have their response and interaction with them as well too on the shows.
100%.
The reality is, a lot of my material like Nick said, we've got some great listeners, great Clubhouse members. That's our Patreon. And for as low as $2 a month, you can watch us record live. And they feed me material. So I can't take full credit. I just perform them. Chris writes all of his own stuff, but we're just so blessed with some amazing listeners.
Oh, they're great. They are great.
That's fantastic. It's always kind of fun to see those interactions. I mean, we do it just for the love of doing it, right? We just like to talk. We like to visit with our friends, so it's kind of fun. But when you get that interaction, you're actually seeing that you've affected someone. Has there been any episode where you've affected someone that's reached back out to you that you remember? Each one of you have any kind of a certain thing that you've kind of interacted with a fan or a listener with?
Yeah, for me, definitely anytime we do, I guess a gay episode, people reach out to me, friends or people that listen to it, especially when we get more on the serious side of things. Nick's coming out definitely had a huge impact on people. People love Nick. Nick may be, of the 7 of us that rotate in these 2 shows, Nick is probably the most popular. So hearing his story and the way that Nick's kind of personality and character, not character because it's real life, but the way his arc has been, he's really told some very, very deep and personal stories. So people love Nick. So anytime Nick talks about real life, whether it's his mental health or his coming out, it's a very popular episode, and everyone's and people will tell me how much he impacted them or the episode impacted him, and yeah, it's been really cool. Definitely more feedback that we get from the Wednesday night episodes, because the Sunday night episodes are just funny.
But
go ahead.
But about the Sunday night episodes, Scott. Some of my favorite messages are from our Patreon members saying, "Oh man, I was having a really rough day, and I just listened to your most recent episode. Thanks for the laughs." Like hearing, because the Wednesday episodes are so important. But hearing that somebody was having a horrible day and was able to laugh because of something you said, like that's what we do it for. Is just to make people laugh,
I bet. Have you got any feedback, Nick, from anything since you've been on the show?
Yeah, it's been, like he said, it's been really awesome. I've become friends with a lot of the Patreon members as well, too, and getting some private messages from a couple of them that might have been struggling that day mentally and just didn't really have anybody that they've ever opened up to. And a couple of them have opened up to me and just kind of shared their life stories, which has been really awesome to have that, because I've been through a therapy journey over the past 3.5 years since right before the pandemic, and my mentality has changed so much, and I've become more of an advocate as well too for mental health, medication, stuff like that, and seeing therapy. And for me, it's been amazing to be able to share my journey and wisdom, I guess, if you want to call it that, I don't know, with others, and I love sharing it with these 2 guys here as well too. They have been so great and accepting of me, where and like Scott said, I'm apparently the most popular person on the podcast. I, growing up, didn't feel that. I've never felt like I belonged anywhere, and to hear that I'm popular, I love it. Now I got a big head, so.
Chris, you can back me up on that, right?
100%.
Like that's all I hear
my wife tells me how
yeah.
much more she loves Nick than me.
Well, and my husband loves Chris more than me, so
That's a fair
I love it. And what you guys are doing is working, obviously, because you're up for little Hometown Hero Awards down in Florida. Talk about that. That's got to be kind of exciting. I've gone through podcast awards before that is full of baloney, where you're going to pay them to get you a trophy. But this is actually
not crazy. There's so many of those.
Insane. I hate those. But this is from the actual fans of your local area. Talk about what Orlando's doing.
Yeah, so the Best of Orlando competition, it's a local publication, Orlando Weekly, probably the biggest local publication, more opinion and what's going on around town. But this has been going on now for, 10, 15 years, I think. And I've always, my heroes are always nominated for best radio show, best radio station. So it was always a cool thing. And then I worked at a go-kart center that was nominated and won for best go-kart center. So when we started the podcast, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we got nominated? And year one, we got nominated for best local podcast.
That's awesome.
Super exciting.
That.
Yep. Year two, nominated again. And now this is our third year in a row that we are nominated. We are really trying hard to, like the other podcasts, we're all trying to band together to beat this one podcast that wins every single year. Mediocre Time with Tom and Dan pretty much started the podcast scene in Orlando. They used to be on the radio. Now they've got their own podcast and they're huge. Right. So they win every year and it's sad.
Good job plugging them.
What's that?
Good job plugging them.
Well, anyway, so vote.orlandoweekly.com under the category Local Notables. Just vote for us, Best Local Podcast. But it's always exciting every year when the nominations come out to see our little podcast on there, because it's my dream, and just to see that there is just a really cool thing.
Well, congratulations. It's awesome. But it's not just podcasts. You said in your deep radio voice there, you have a little extra nomination there, right?
Yeah. So every year I try to push Mary to get nominated for something. Last year it was Best Local OnlyFans, and we actually did get her nominated, which did not go over well with her husband. So we called Orlando Weekly and had it taken down. So I was trying to get her nominated for Best Local Big Shot. There's an award, just Best Local Big Shot. And as I'm scrolling through, I get to Best Local Radio Voice, and I'm just looking, and I'll be damned, Scott, I saw my name on there. My name was on the category Best Local Radio Voice with my heroes, my inspirations, the people who I've been listening to since I was in high school and inspired me to do what I'm doing now. And there I am right there on the list with them.
That is awesome. Congratulations on that. That is so cool.
Thank you.
Guys,
I don't really like talking about it, though.
Oh, you're so shy. I can tell that shy, demeaning personality. We got to start wrapping it up. Let's go ahead and give yourselves all a little plug here. Nick, let's start with you. Talk about your business a bit. Like we said, you're a concierge traveler, and it is for the you do some great services for the LGBTQ community. Talk about the importance of that.
Yeah, so my husband and I started a travel agency during the pandemic when nobody was traveling. So people thought I was crazy, but as a marketing person, I knew once people were ready to travel, they would be going hardcore with it. So we started this business and focusing on Disney because that's our passion, as well as cruising, and just finding safe spaces for my clients to travel has been a lot of my passion over the past couple of years, because unfortunately the LGBTQ plus community has not had some great reputation, unfortunately, with Florida, where Disney's located, but Disney is very gay friendly. So I made sure that my clients aren't going to Jamaica if they ask about Jamaica, because of their gay rights issues that are happening there. Mexico is a very friendly place. So I just want to make sure, because we are not only a gay couple, but we're gay dads too. That's right. We have a big circle of gay dad community, and making sure that we have a safe space for our daughter to go to, as well as us. So.
I love that. Thank you for doing that. And what is your website for that? And is there any social media for you?
So it's sandpipervacations.com. So we named the travel agency after our daughter Piper. So sandpipervacations.com or Sandpiper Vacations on Facebook and Instagram. And like I said, we book any vacation destination. Our passion is Disney and cruises and all-inclusive. It doesn't cost anything to use our services. We get paid by our suppliers. So I always tell people you're paying for a travel agency whether or not you use one. So you might as well take advantage of a service you're paying for, essentially. So
there you go. I love that.
Yeah, thank you.
And Chris, we talked earlier, you do a great service to the public, but talk about what kind of brings you joy outside of podcasting. Where can my listeners follow you if they want to follow you after this?
Oh, man. What brings me joy outside of podcasting? Spending time with my wife, mostly, and watching movies with her. We like to go to the movies a lot, and in and out, I guess, because it's in the age that we're in. It was a lot of Netflix. But But where people can find me, I'm on the No New Friends podcast, which Scott will plug away, I'm sure, in a minute here. I'm also on a Disney history podcast, DizHiz, DizHiz. You can find us on all social media at DizHizPod. And if you like Disney history, it's a really fun podcast. A few weeks ago, Nick came on and we did the history of Disney's gay days, which was a really fun episode to do. And Nick was great on that, and it was a really good educational experience, I think, for all of us. That was really cool.
So Disney's got a lot of controversy with Strange Worlds for having a gay character on there. Is there, in your history, have you come across any other gay characters before Strange Worlds that you've ever talked about?
No, so we didn't go into the gay history of Disney, but just the sanctioned and unsanctioned gay day events that Disney have at their parks.
Right.
In the sanctioned ones in California, unsanctioned in places like Orlando. That's really what we focused on more. But I can't wait for next Pride Month to get more into something like that. It's actually would be really interesting to get to the history on.
Nice. And Scott, you kind of work for the theme park industry down there and everything. Talk about that. I think you do. I'm not 100% sure on that. But
yeah, we don't talk about that publicly.
Talk about where people can find you, and then brag about the No New Friends podcast. And you can follow you.
Thanks for listening to
look, the best way to get to find me and to find the podcast, nonewfriendspodcast.com. All of our social media links are there. We are on the Facebook, we are on the Instagram, we're on the YouTube, the TikTok, but there are no.new.friends.podcast on TikTok and Instagram, and then just No New Friends Podcast on YouTube and Facebook. But we're all over the place. And then you can find me if you. I live a boring life outside of the podcast, so Scott Maffei. I don't really have much going on the Facebook, though. But you can vote for me.
There you go. I like it. Well, guys, thanks so much for being part of the Left of Str8 podcast. It's been my absolute pleasure getting to know you. We're going to have to do this again real soon, okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for having us. This was a blast.
All right, guys, stick around. We're going to have all three of these fantastic guests on for 5 questions with next Tuesday. Be sure to look for that. And be sure to check us out online. You can see us at Left of Str8 Show, www.leftofstr8show.com. And be sure to check out all of our social media as well. We'll see you next week, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye. Hey, everyone. Welcome to my Patreon page. I hope you're here to support the Left of Str8 Radio Network. We have been podcasting for 9 years now. We just celebrated our 8-year anniversary show on July 3rd, and we are in our 9th year. And I hope you'll help us continue to be on the air and support LGBTQ radio and our straight allies. We launched this Patreon page to help defray some of the costs for hosting and for video and for everything that we need on here. It would be my honor and privilege to get to know you all. I have 3 tiers on here to pledge. We don't want it to be a hardship for anybody, but if you can part with just a little bit money each month, it would really help support the radio show and the station. For just $3 a month, just the price of a cup of coffee, we're going to give you a huge thank you on the Left of Str8 website. Plus, I'm going to send you a personalized postcard from me for thanking in the effort. For just a little bit more, for $8 a month, what I call the price of coffee and a bagel each month, I also give you the first tier of the postcard and the shout out. And you also get to listen to all the episodes before anybody else, commercial free, along with an I Support LGBTQ Radio sticker and 10% off merchandise in our upcoming LGBT store for the Left of Str8 Radio. And then the third tier you can pledge to, if you can set aside money for coffee and lunch, just $13 a month. Besides everything in the first 2 tiers, you also have the opportunity to listen live in one of our live recordings, one of our interviews with a celebrity or personality from entertainment, foodies, books, music, or advocacy. You can ask some questions. You can get a special Left of Str8 Radio tote bag and 20% off merchandise in the upcoming store. So thank you for stopping by Patreon. I hope you will donate each month. And thanks for being a great supporter of LGBTQ radio and helping us keep on the air. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Left of Str8 Show. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast distributor, and please give us a 5-star rating so more listeners can find us. You can follow us on social media, and be sure to check out our website, www.leftofstraightradio.com, for contests and other news and information. See you next week.